Branch FM. Radio for Life.
This is 101.8 Branch FM Radio for Life. I'm over the phone today with Communications Officer of SPUC, that's Society for the Protection of Unborn Children, Alithea Williams. Hi there, thanks for joining me again.
Hello, good to be with you today.
Thank you. So I want to talk about the youth conference. That's the main reason for today's interview. So that's the SPUC Youth Conference, March the 15th to the 17th. Before we do that, on my feature I've interviewed a few people from SPUC, but for those who are not aware, could you just tell us a little bit about the organisation?
Yes, so SPUC is one of the oldest pro-life organisations in the world. We were founded just before the Abortion Act came in 1967, so people came together in order to fight the Abortion Act. And ever since then, we've been fighting to return the law back to where it should be, one that protects all human life. Obviously, it kind of started just being about abortion, but since then there's been all these other threats to life, euthanasia, embryo testing, all these kind of things. So basically, our aim is to protect all life from conception until natural death and to have laws that reflect that.
Okay, so the youth conference, how many years has that been taking place?
Oh, difficult question to begin with. I think about 10 years in this incarnation.
Right, okay.
It was in Scotland. When I was a university student, I went up to Scotland for it, but it's since moved back down to England. So about 10 years.
Is it 16 to 35?
Yes, so under 18s can come with parental permission. But
So the youth conference, March the 15th to the 17th this year. First of all, tell us where it is.
It is in Milton Keynes this year. We tend to move around a bit to have it in different conference centres. So this year is in Milton Keynes, nice and accessible to the train lines. So
it's not far from the train station?
No.
Really good. And so tell us a little bit about the conference.
Okay, so the aim of the youth conference is to get young people together. I think, particularly with the pro-life cause, it can be quite unpopular. People can feel quite isolated if they're just by themselves at their universities. So it's a really unique chance to get together with hundreds of other young people. We tend to get about 200 people. And we really want to just train people up to be able to speak on these issues. So we have a number of really good speakers, and then we'll also have workshops, and just a really good chance to get together and have a lot of fun. We always have Kaylee on the Saturday nights, which is very popular. We'll have a quiz, lots of time to eat and drink together and just really discuss and plan for the future.
Great, and I want to mention it's £115. That's for everything, isn't it? Food and accommodation.
Yeah, all the food, all the accommodation, all the talks.
Now,
if I say so myself.
Yeah, just for a note. For other years, if you book before the end of December, it is cheaper.
Yes, we had an early bird rate of £100 up until the end of December.
Yeah, and so if people want to book, the best place to go is the website, is it?
Yeah, so it's spuc.org.uk and then /YC 2019 will take you straight to the page.
Let others know as well. And the theme this year is Be a Voice for the Voiceless.
Yes, so as I said, we really want to kind of train people up to speak on behalf of the unborn. The unborn are some of the most vulnerable members of our society, and of course there's other vulnerable members, the elderly, the disabled, all these people who can't speak for themselves. And so we really want to train people up to be that voice.
Branch FM. Radio for Life.
This is 101.8 Branch FM Radio for Life. I'm over the phone today with Communications Officer of SPUC, that's Society for the Protection of Unborn Children, Alithea Williams. What about the speakers? Tell us about some of them.
Yeah, so we're really excited this year. Our keynote speaker is Stephanie Gray, who is a Canadian speaker. And she's most well known for, she did one of the Google Talks.
Yeah.
And she got, millions and millions of people watching that talk. So the head of Planned Parenthood did a similar Google talk, and Stephanie's talk got way more reach than hers did. And if you want to kind of get a feel for what she's like, I'd encourage people to go onto YouTube and see that, because it is an amazing talk. Because it's obviously not a particularly friendly environment for the pro-life movement, but she just kind of put across her point so well and so eloquently. So her big thing is storytelling. How we can use stories to tell the pro-life message. So I think, you often find that you can use logical arguments, and you should use logical arguments, but you can sometimes use them till the cows come home and it doesn't get through to people. What really gets through to people is stories, like, oh, I knew this person and they had a really difficult situation, but they had the baby, or I know these people who have been really hurt by abortion. It's that kind of heart, that kind of storytelling which gets through to people. So we're really excited that Stephanie is coming and talking about that. In terms of other speakers, we have our very own Fiorella Nash. She's going to be talking about her new book, The Abolition of Woman. So Fiorella is always very popular at our conferences. She speaks on pro-life feminism, so how abortion hurts women, how it doesn't empower women. And in her book, she's got, some really interesting stuff about like forced abortion in China, or kind of coerced abortion generally. So that should be really, really exciting. We also have Obianuju Ekioka, who listeners might know is the founder of Culture of Life Africa.
Yeah.
So she's a Nigerian lady who's just become this really powerful force. Speaking about the unborn, and particularly the situation in Africa where so much aid money is going from Western countries to impose abortion and other anti-life practices on Africa. And she's going to be introducing her new documentary, which is called Strings Attached. And we actually had a kind of preview of that in an event in Parliament. And it's really powerful stuff, just this whole agenda in Africa. And so that's really worth coming to listen to. And then we also have Michael Wee, who works for the Anscombe Bioethics Institute, and he'll be talking on euthanasia and assisted suicide. So I think particularly at the moment, I think we're seeing a bit of a new surge of kind of pushing for that. We've got the Royal College of Physicians are looking to change their stance to drop their opposition to it. So I think this may be something that's coming up in the current year. So it's really worth coming and hearing that and kind of learning what's going on and what to expect. And then we also have Dr. Callum Miller, who is a medical doctor, but also a research scholar in bioethics at the University of Oxford. He also has a master's in biblical studies, so he's just kind of bringing all these threads together, so it should be really good to hear him. Yes, so that's the speakers. We'll also be having an apologetics panel where people can ask all the questions they want to about life issues. If there's anything they're struggling with, hopefully get some answers. And we'll be hearing from Project Truth, who are our team up in Scotland to go around in the summer into the streets and spread the pro-life message. And obviously there'll be a chance to ask questions of all the speakers as well.
Amazing. So encourage people to go on to spuc.org.uk. Now, Alithea, so I mentioned at the top your communications officer. I wanted to ask you, have you been to the conference before you came to work for SPUC?
Yes, actually. So I first went to the conference in my first year of university. It was up in Scotland then, so it was quite an adventure. It was my first time going to Scotland. So I was at Cardiff, and it was a long drive. But actually, the pro-life society I was at Cardiff Students for Life, had begun because the president before me had gone up to the conference and been inspired to start it. And in fact, when I went up to the conference, this was back in, I think, 2009, 2010, we took some students from Bristol University who they didn't have a pro-life society at that point, so they just came from the Catholic chaplaincy, and the conference inspired them to begin a pro-life society there. So this was kind of the start of something bigger. You may have heard of the Alliance of Pro-Life Students. So,
yes.
I was one of the founding members of that, and these girls who came from Bristol were also founding members. So it kind of had this real kind of knock-on effect. People going to the conference, becoming inspired to do more at their universities, which then led to the founding of a whole new organisation. So it really does have a big effect.
Yeah. Yeah. So what would you say is the best thing about attending the conference, and why is it so important, particularly in this society we live in at the moment?
I think it is just so important to get people together. I know myself from having been a pro-life student at university that it can feel very isolating. You can feel quite alone, like nobody thinks the same way that you do. So then when you have hundreds of people all coming together who think the same way, and just coming together and learning the argument, and it kind of equips you to go back into your university or your school or your day-to-day life just with a bit more confidence and knowing what to say.
Really good. So spuc.org.uk, that's the SPUC Youth Conference 2019, 15th to the 17th of March. Go ahead and check out the website there. Just before we finish, Alithea, I know you've been on before talking about pro-life news. I encourage people generally to go on your website, and one of the things is people can sign up to an email which sends out latest news every weekday, isn't it?
Yes.
So I just wondered if you maybe highlight a couple of stories that you've had recently. You mentioned early on the interview about the Royal College of Physicians, isn't it? About the possibility of changing their opposition to assisted suicide to be more neutral.
Yes. So at the moment, the Royal College of Physicians opposes assisted suicide, as do most medical bodies and disability charities in this country. And what's happening now is they're doing another consultation of their members on their stance on assisted suicide, which in itself sounds, quite benign. You should poll your members, that makes sense. But what they're doing now is they're saying that they're going to change the stance to being neutral unless 60% of people, respondents, want to keep it the same, which is just extraordinary. You don't normally ask for a supermajority in order to keep something. And also, sounding neutral sounds quite neutral, doesn't it? But this is obviously going to be billed as, Royal College of Physicians drops their opposition to assisted suicide. So we're very much seeing this as kind of a precursor to new moves in Parliament, new attempts. So they've had some setbacks in the courts recently. Yeah. So, we wonder if they're going to be going back to Parliament.
I think hasn't there been something like 10 votes or something in Parliament?
Yes, there's been a number of votes over the years. I mean, the latest one was in 2015, the Maris Bill, which was defeated quite substantially, actually. That was a really good victory. Yeah. And a very good example of MPs actually discussing things and coming to a good conclusion. Yes, shame it's not quite like that at the moment. But that was very good. Yes, so that's definitely something to be aware of. I think one of the stories that's really made a lot of news recently is New York. They recently passed this really extreme abortion bill, which allows abortion up to birth in some cases. And it's been quite extraordinary the amount of coverage that story has got. I think particularly just the kind of triumphalism there. For instance, so the governor of New York ordered that various landmarks in New York be lit up pink to celebrate this. I think a lot of people just found very distasteful. And I think that's obviously it's horrendous news, but it's been doing a good job of kind of alerting people to this agenda. There are people in this country who want the same thing. BPAS, the largest abortion provider, have openly said they would want abortion up until birth. Which brings me on to another story. So the big kind of battle of last year, and I'm sure will continue to be this year, is against decriminalisation. So the abortion lobby and the pro-abortion MPs in Parliament have been fighting to decriminalise abortion, which means taking it out of the criminal code. At the moment, they're kind of limiting themselves to up to 24 weeks of pregnancy, but it's very clear that they would want abortion up to birth. And what happened last week is, so the government has recently introduced a draft bill on domestic violence, domestic abuse, which is obviously a very important issue and something people have been wanting the government to do some more on for a long time. And various MPs have been kind of indicating for a while that they have been meaning to table an amendment to this bill to decriminalise abortion. And what happened last week was Stella Creasy, MP, the Labour MP for Walthamstow, who's kind of one of the leaders of this movement. She asked an urgent question because it's emerged that this bill only applies to England and Wales, and part of what she's trying to do is to decriminalise abortion in Northern Ireland, even though the Northern Ireland Assembly is not functioning, and the MPs who actually represent Northern Ireland, the members of the DUP, are strongly opposed to this. So she asked this question, saying, why has the government blocked this? What's going on? And she's basically had this big rant about abortion. And she's accusing the government of blocking her from using this domestic violence bill to introduce this extreme abortion agenda, which there is no public appetite for. You think she should be justifying why she thinks it's at all appropriate to use a domestic abuse bill like an important issue in this way. So it really just shows how far they're willing to go, that they will take an important issue like this for their own agenda.
Well, thank you for that, and people can sign up to your emails on spuc.org.uk. Thank you very much, Alithea, for speaking to us. Is there anything else that you wanted to add, about the youth conference before we leave it there?
No, just, remember it's, 15th to the 17th of March, still taking bookings. We've already got quite a lot of people signed up, so do sign up quickly, and hope to see you there.
Brilliant, So spuc.org.uk is the website. Thanks very much for speaking to us today.
Thank you.
Branch FM. Radio for Life.